Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sports Talk with Tonsoni. I'm your host, Bryan Tonsoni, and we're going to bring you a special edition tonight since the Major League Baseball season has been starting for about 10 to 12 games so far. I have Bryan Mauro with me from Busting Brackets and several other sites that he's advancing. A great writer starting up in the last 2 or 3 years, covers a lot of basketball, but he also has a lot of love for baseball. And we're going to talk some interesting things to start the MLB season for about a half an hour and hopefully give you a little bit of insight into the 2018 Major League Baseball season. Bryan, glad to have you. How have you been?
Been well, man. I've been well. The Red Sox, my favorite team, are starting off like gangbusters. That's a good. They're wearing one tonight against the Yankees, though. But that tends to happen when you beat them by 13 runs the night before. So
yeah. And when there's 162 games, there's going to be games where it just doesn't work out. So, yeah, for purposes, my team is the Chicago Cubs. Bryan likes the Boston Red Sox. So for any bias evaluation, you have it there out in front of you. So we got a few topics tonight. Let's get right into it. Bryan, let's talk about best team or best teams in baseball, and not necessarily the starting record, but just the overall composition. You think that over 162 games we'll see at the end having a good chance to get to the World Series?
Okay, so I'll give you my top 5 if that works.
That'll work.
So I'm still saying with the Astros is number 1. They're the reigning champs. They didn't lose a thing from last year. They actually got better because they have Verlander for the full season.
Do you think Garrett Cole helps them for the full season too?
Oh, man, that guy's a strikeout monster. He is. We'll see. I don't know. I've never really been that high on Garrett Cole, but after his first 2 starts, he's been really good, and he's going to get a lot of run support in Houston. So, but again, he goes from one home run friendly ballpark to a ballpark that's probably more home run friendly in Houston. So we'll see. He strikes a lot of guys out, though.
Yeah, I like the way the Astros play. I think they have a lot of good young talent. The Correa kid we'll talk about a little bit later at shortstop, and Altuve. You've got to. I don't necessarily root for him, but you got to like him and respect him a little bit as baseball fans.
He's a good player, and George Springer is he's the truth, man. Like, that dude is the truth. So
the Astros are number 1. Who comes in number 2?
Out of sheer composition, I would say number 2 would be, out of sheer composition and talent-wise, would be the Cubs. You have to like, their offense is great. They're starting slow now, but they'll get going. You got to think, the majority of the United States, with the exception of probably the Marlins and the Rays because they play indoors, and even some of the Southern California teams, it's been bitterly cold, and it's hard to hit and it's hard to pitch in weather like that. So you're not really getting a full view of what everybody's doing. So the Cubs, I like them a lot.
It's a composition thing. I'm going to cut you off here for a little bit on the Cubs. Okay. I think composition-wise, I'm up there with you. They have to do a little bit better in situation. And your comments about the cold weather and on the road, their first 10 games were scheduled to be on the road, and then they come home to a blizzard. So, I got the Cubs game on one TV and the Red Sox on another here while we're talking. But I do think they have a good team. I think their pitching staff and their bullpen, if it continues doing what they're doing so far early in the year, I think they're going to be their challenge at the end. Who's your number 3 team?
The one question I will say on the Cubs is I don't know if Brandon Mauro can be a closer for the whole year. That's still kind of gives me a lot of pause on that one. But team number 3 is the Red Sox. They're the 2-time reigning AL East champs. I know what the Yankees did, but Boston's pitching staff with David Price right, and with Chris Sale, and if Porcello pitches as he's capable of, and Pomeranz is obviously going to build on that year he had last year. The one question mark in that rotation is Eduardo Rodriguez. Does he pitch like he did on Sunday, or does he have the stuff the whole year where he can go out and throw a no-hitter against anybody? Because he's shown that stuff too. If they and their offense, man, Mookie looks different. Hanley says he's going to go 30-30, and he has 3 stolen bases and launched a ball tonight in the first inning. And JD Martinez makes that lineup extremely dynamic, and the way that Bogarts is hitting, and plus, who knows, with a fresh face, the team is built to win. But we'll see what happens. And their bullpen needs to get short up a little bit.
I agree with you on the Red Sox, and their closer is a lockdown closer in Kimbrel. I think
that guy's nasty, man. He's nasty.
Now, for me, my favorite Red Sox sitting in AAA is Sam Travis. So if you have any injuries around at first base, need a hitter to come up, I like Sam Travis. He might be used, and minor leaguers sometimes are used for trade at the deadline. And going back to your Cubs comment, I think watch them for a trade for a closer if Mauro can't stay healthy, or C.J. Edwards doesn't also help out in that closing role. So those are your top three. Who you had at 4?
To go back to Sam Travis, I will tell you, I don't see him getting traded. I know Dombrowski and the organization is extremely high on him.
That's good to hear.
They had a lot of requests for him in the offseason, and they kind of shut them down. So I don't see him getting traded. He's one of their top prospects. So we'll see, especially now that their top prospect, Michael Chavis, got suspended for 80 games for doing some steroids. So that doesn't sit too well with that organization. So.
Also, it's Moreland and Hanley who have been at first base DH too, and they got a year or two left, and then that might be open up a spot for a guy like Travis to move right into that.
And Hanley's really injury prone, so we'll see what happens.
All right, let's go to your number 4 and 5 teams.
Number 4, makeup wise, the Yankees. I mean, they're struggling now, but the middle of that order with Judge and Stanton and Sanchez and Gregorius is ridiculous. And the ballpark they play in, they may like Stanton, Judge, and Sanchez might strike out 700 times combined, but they're going to hit probably 200 homers at least. And with Tanaka there, and Tanaka and Severino are good enough. Severino got drilled last night, but he's good enough that those two are good enough to take them a ways. And with that lineup, they're a pitcher's worst nightmare because you can't get – and when Stanton's going well, you can't get him out. And Sanchez is struggling now, but he's a monster.
And you live by the home run, you die by the home run sometimes too. Yeah. So that might be a difference maker between a couple of really good teams. I wonder about their pitching, the starting pitching holding up. The bullpen will be fine, but I do see the Yankees there. I didn't have them as my 4th team. I do have them high as 5th or 6th. I had a different team as number 4. I agree with you in the first 3. Let's last best team on the list for tonight.
The Nationals.
Bryce
I wouldn't have said that. Bryce Harper. I want to say the Mets, but I don't know if they're really that good or not. But I'm going to go with the Nationals. Anytime that you have you have Bryce Harper, you have Anthony Rendon. You have anytime you have Max. I mean, Max Scherzer's good enough for 25 wins, probably, maybe. I mean, the guy's going. He basically dominates that entire division, and he's gonna get he's gonna get at least 6 wins against the Marlins and the Marlins and the Phillies, because there's no way those lineups are hitting him.
Let me ask you a question, because 3 of your 5 top teams, and I have I had the Astros, Red Sox, Cubs, Nationals, Yankees, so we have the same team, slightly different order there. But 3 of the 5 teams have first-year managers. What do you think the difference of first-year managers with talented ball clubs, does that make a positive difference? Is it not much of a difference, or could it be a negative for those teams come down to crunch time in managing a whole season, managing pitching, injuries, and getting ready for postseason play? And then postseason play brings a whole new ball game in as well for some of these. I know my closest New York fan, Yankee fan, has not been happy with the manager to start out the year. And so, you tight scrutiny on some of these guys. What do you think about these teams, 3 of these 5 teams having new managers?
I think Aaron Boone was probably the weirdest hire in baseball. I mean, it was weird. The guy, I mean, at least Alex Cora was on a staff somewhere.
Correct.
Does that make sense? And Davey Martinez was on a staff somewhere. Right? Aaron Boone, they went and got Aaron Boone out of the booth at ESPN. And the reason, to be perfectly honest with you, I think they got Aaron Boone was because they hired him after Boston hired Alex Cora. And I know this sounds weird, okay? But Alex Cora was a Red Sox. He was the guy the fans wanted. The players wanted him. The fans were going to get behind him. I think the Yankees were extremely reactionary in hiring Aaron Boone. But I also think that the Yankees knew, too, that they could get Stanton for nothing, essentially. I mean, it's not gonna hurt Giancarlo Stanton, or it's not gonna hurt Aaron Boone having Judge, Stanton, Sanchez, and Gregorius in his lineup every day. Now, I don't think that I would arrange the lineup that the Yankees have the way Aaron Boone is doing it. I think it's really, really top heavy, which doesn't bode well for guys like, I don't know. I mean, I don't like that lineup because you're going to have oftentimes where Gregorius is going to be leading off innings, and you kind of want him hitting around guys that are going to get on base a lot. Cora, I love him so far. I mean, what's not to like? They're 9-1 and they look different. I question sometimes the way he makes his lineups. Like tonight, for example, Benintendi starts raking last night, and in his career, he kills the Yankees. And now tonight he's sitting. I don't get that. But also, with that being said, Dombrowski promised JD Martinez that he could play the outfield 3 days a week. So you have to put somebody out there, and it's definitely not going to be Mookie Betts. And you lose a lot defensively if Jackie Bradley's not in center. I know he doesn't hit well, but you lose a lot with him not in center field.
I haven't done enough research to look at who's on these staffs. Sometimes your bench coach and your pitching coach and hitting coaches really make a difference too. And when you're a young new coach, you need to surround yourself with veterans on the bench. And so that's something that I might look at here in the next month or so to see how all of that is playing out. Let's go to the next topic: worst teams or team in baseball. The floor is yours.
I have two that are the worst, and I think they're probably going to be the worst by a long ways. I'll give you three. I think they're going to be the three worst teams by a long way. And number one is the Rays. I think the Rays are terrible. I mean, I watched them play 6 of the first 9 they played this year was against Boston. They're bad. They have no desirable prospects on that team that anybody's going to want in the trade. I mean, Chris Archer, but I don't know about that. He walks a lot of guys and gives up a lot of runs, and he's their ace. And then you have a closer, and Alex Colomé, who something there with Colomé, I don't know if you've watched him or not. Something's not right. I think he's hurt because his velocity is way down, and he's leaving pitches right over the middle of the plate. And their lineup is atrociously bad. I mean, if you look at their lineup, you can't believe that half of these guys are even in the league, much less this is a major league lineup. I mean, they have C.J. Cron, who, nice player, but he's not a cleanup hitter on a major league team. He's going to hit cleanup for them probably every game this year.
Man, that's a tough squad right there.
Yeah, that's a tough.
Who's going to give him competition? Who's going to give him competition for the worst team?
The Marlins, and only because Derek Jeter did that to himself.
Yep.
I mean, Jeter traded away the whole team to rebuild and got really nothing for it. The Marlins have been kind of competitive, though. I don't think that will last because they have a ton of rookies. I mean, they've played 13 rookies. They have 6 rookies that start every day. So they're eventually – go ahead.
It's interesting to see now that the team's following the Astros and the Cubs in tearing it down and building it back up. And you see the White Sox doing that and acquiring a lot of talent at the minor league level and hoping that it pays off. But in order to do that, you have to be shrewd in making trades. You have to get some known talent back. You might have to really do well in scouting and finding those couple of gems. And the Cubs were able to do that even at the major league level with Arrieta and Strope. The Astros have done a really good job of drafting and getting young talent in. And so I think a lot of teams are going to that model right now to do
one
that.
Thing you have to realize, too, is you have to hope your prospects pan out.
Correct.
Okay? I mean, yeah, great. George Springer was a great prospect, but if he never hits or never did anything in the minor leagues, no one would have cared. Right?
And you got to hit them for several times in a row. You got to hit 2 or 3 of those guys, and they got to pop at the right time. The White Sox can have 9 or 10 great prospects in the minor leagues, but if 3 or 4 of them don't pop, a couple on the mound, a couple in the lineup, if they don't pop at the same time, you're not going to elevate as fast as some of these other teams. And that's a credit to the Houston organization and the Cubs organization for being able to do that in relatively short periods of time.
I mean, look at guys like when the Red Sox went and got Chris Sale, right? Yeah, they gave up Kopech, that's a tough one, but you're going to have to give up somebody. They gave up Moncada. So the Red Sox scouting department said, we're not going to give you Benintendi. That seems to be the right decision now because Moncada still looks lost at the plate.
Mm-hmm.
The guy has ridiculous power. But when you hit 205 and you're a leadoff hitter, you can't do that. He strikes out all the time. He chases bad pitches. I thought that maybe it was just a thing when he was younger, but he's been in the league now for this will be his first full year, but he was in the league for most of the year last year, and it still was the same thing. He doesn't look right. He doesn't look comfortable at the plate at all.
Okay, so there are some teams. Let's go right now, and I had this players you want to watch, and let's just focus on that. We have about 10, 15 minutes left.
Okay.
But these are players that you and I would obviously go see the Cubs and the Red Sox play. But sometimes if I was in a city and some of these guys came through, these are some of the guys that you and I think that we would pay good money to go see. And let's start out with the Los Angeles Angels and the new guy, Ohtani. And you wanted to talk about him, so the floor is yours. Why would you pay good money to go see this guy play?
Because I was really, really wrong about Ohtani. I didn't think he'd be good at all. And then the dude's on the mound dropping splitters that drop from your head to your toes and throwing 102 miles an hour. And then he's coming up and just banging home runs like crazy. So I know it's only April and they've only played 12 games, and I will say this, if the Angels are in a pennant race, I don't think Ohtani will hit.
That's interesting.
I think that Scioscia's he's much more valuable to them on the mound. He's a much better pitcher than he is hitter. Well, I don't really know that, but I know that they say he's a much better pitcher than he is hitter. It looks like that. That guy has nasty stuff, and he could throw a no-hitter anytime he's out there. That splitter is unhittable.
I'm looking forward to checking him out on the Major League Baseball package that I have. And he had a tough spring, and there was some talk that some people were saying he might need some seasoning in the minor leagues, and then he comes out and has a couple great outings on the mound and hits. So that's someone that the listeners might want to check out either on television or if you at your nearest baseball park. How about Bryce Harper?
And just for like a public service announcement on Ohtani, I'm not joking when I tell you. Okay, he hits and he pitches, and it's amazing to watch him do both. And when he pitches, I mean, he legit throws 102. I mean, it's not like a juiced gun. He legit throws that hard and then busts off like an 85-mile-an-hour splitter that's impossible to hit. The guy's fun to watch. Bryce Harper is another one. I like players that play like Bryce Harper does. I like guys that have his fire. I know he rubs a lot of guys the wrong way, but I love him. Actually, to be honest with you, let's just put like the foursome of him and Mookie. And obviously I'm biased to Mookie, but I don't know of anybody that really doesn't like watching Mookie Betts play. So him, Mookie, who was the other? Francisco Lindor and Mike Trout. Like, let's just put all of them in kind of and even Javi Baez for like just kind of the way that they play, right? They just have a swag and they play. They have a swag and they know that they're good and they play with confidence, and it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. But when you can do what they do, it doesn't really matter.
Okay, so you hit on a lot of guys on my list, and this is our second conversation, and we're just kind of getting to know each other as host and guest and all of these things. But the players I have that I want to pay have been all-stars for the most part, young, good all-stars. But in preparing today, I did put Baez on my list, and I was like, man, that's a tough one to sell to listeners because he hasn't really had all-star type of years, but I just love the way he plays. And again, people are going to say, well, Tonsoni's a Cubs fan. I love the way he tags. A simple thing like that is unseen from his plays at second base is quick tags. And I do like players with passion. And I know sometimes that does rub people the wrong way. But if you're talented, can back it up, I don't mind that, as long as you understand and still adhere to some of the unwritten baseball rules of the decency of baseball rules. But I am glad to hear you say Javi Baez. You just jumped up a couple even more steps on
the guy. Does anyone? I mean, I don't hope that you're like the listeners understand how important Baez is to what the Cubs are trying to do as a whole. Right? He's not just some guy. And I can just say this too with the Cubs. My brother's a diehard Cub fan and actually a baseball writer as well for the Cubs. He and I have had this conversation before. Madden's lineup this year is maddening to me. Like, it just frustrates me so much. Why would you have a guy like Baez, okay, who is a power hitter, hitting behind the pitcher, he's never going to see pitches now, ever. It drives me nuts. I don't the way that sometimes, I mean, Madden works and he won a World Series and he wins everywhere he's ever gone. But his lineup construction and the things that he does have got to be, for a fan, like, absolutely maddening. I put up with it with John Farrell for years and it drove me crazy. But Madden would drive me nuts.
Here's from a Cubs fan, and that's a great point. I have just given him mad respect and total control, and whatever lineup he puts out there, I think's okay, and I don't second guess him. I do a little bit on some moves, because every fan does, and baseball is a game of second guessing. But when you've been a Cub fan 51 years, and ever since I can, remember, Cubs have been horrible. And Lou Piniella, you hope, come in, and Dusty Baker, and they have a good year, and 2 good years. And this guy's come in, and the Cubs have done nothing but win, has gotten so much grace time and period, and honeymoon period is like extended. Even if he does some crazy things, winning has been fun, and that's not something that has been a Cubs thing. And we have a comment from one of our listeners who's watching our taping of this live. It's the student I talked to you about. He said that he doesn't understand why Bryant's in the 2-hole. That's what drives him. He's a big Cub fan, and so your roster construction, Bryant as a 2-hole. I do see good players at the top getting more at bats. That has been a trend lately.
The Yankees have Judge hitting second, so I mean, but when you have that kind of, and Harper hits second, I believe too. No, he hits third, I think. Now.
I think he's hit second at times, though.
Yeah, I mean. And the same thing can be said about a lot of teams. But Bryan hitting second is frustrating. I agree. But Javi Baez hitting eighth, just, if you're going to do that, hit him ninth. Like, put the pitcher eighth. That way, at least he gets to see some pitches. And the way it's going right now, you might want to consider moving Ian Happ way down in the lineup, because he kind of doesn't walk ever.
So I'm glad that you find bias, and I have someone here who likes these high energy guys. Let me give you a couple of mine, and you can either shoot them down or jump on. Arenado in Colorado, I don't think gets enough publicity because he's out there in Denver, and sometimes the East Coast doesn't pay attention. But I would love to pay to see him. We've talked a lot about Stanton. Lindor was on my list. I thought that was good, but I'll go Arenado and Goldschmidt from Arizona. I do enjoy watching him on the West Coast, and those are a couple of guys for me. Cubs, Rizzo. What do you think of those guys as players that you would pay to watch?
I love Nolan Arenado. That guy's amazing. He's something else. That guy is impressive to watch. Jeez. Well, Gary Sanchez isn't in his slump anymore. Sorry, that was kind of off the realm there, but he just hit another home run. But Arenado is really, really good, and he's really fun to watch. I'm good with everybody. Did you see Arenado today, by the way?
Yeah, there's a dust
guy
up.
Threw the ball behind him, and he took a little bit of offense to that. But I like Arenado a lot. My list of, I guess, top 5 players that I would love to watch or pay to see, no one included a pitcher in there. The one guy that I would love to watch, and I watch him a lot on TV, but I've never watched him in person, is Chris Sale.
Yep.
I'm just going to go with 5 pitchers I'd love to watch because I kind of went on the players. So I'll go Chris Sale, okay. Clayton Kershaw. I'd like to see Craig Kimbrell in person. I would probably watch. I mean, those are really the three top ones that I like to see. So I would go Scherzer, Kershaw, Sale. Let's see. There's other ones in the American League.
Syndergaard?
Yeah, just to see how. Yeah, I like
Syndergaard and DeGrom. I'd love to watch. I had them on my list.
Yeah, Syndergaard. There's one more I'm drawing a blank on. Sorry.
That's okay. Hey, we got about
Darvish is the other one that I like to watch.
We got about 3 or 4 minutes left in the show. Okay. Quickly, we've mentioned a lot of young players already, but give me one young player we haven't mentioned that you would like to go see, and I'll do the same, and then we'll end up with our older veterans that we would like to go see too. So you're one young player right now that you would like to go see.
Matt Chapman from Oakland.
Very good. I had Olsen from Oakland on my list as well. I think they're going to hit some home runs. I don't know how many games they're going to win, but I think they got some people in that lineup that is for our Midwest and Eastern listeners. Check out the Oakland A's. They got
Matt Chapman has legit power, and with Chris Davis hitting in front of him, he's going to get a lot of meat to hit. So
okay, quickly, some of the older veterans. The baseball is a game of youth right now, and you know we haven't mentioned Chris Bryant and some of those players too that are awesome to go see. A lot of young talent. Who are some of the old hanger-oners, late 30s, mid 30s? Give me one or two that you think is worth the price of admission.
Hanley Ramirez.
I have Justin Verlander. I think he's made a comeback late. I have my student wants to go see Bartolo Colon. Big sexy.
I would see Hanley just because Hanley is going to do what Hanley does, man. He's watching Manny Ramirez. He's either going to hit like a 500-foot homer or go 0 for 5 with 5 Ks. So, I mean, that's just the way the guy plays.
All right, let's go to some quick predictions here. Again, we got about 3 or 4 minutes till we're going to sign off. Let's go your division champs in the National League.
Division champs, National League. Okay, so we're going to go with let's go with the Nationals, the Diamondbacks, and the Cubs.
Okay, I agree with you on 2. I say the Dodgers are going to sneak back in there. American League division champs.
Red Sox, Twins, and the Astros.
Boom, we are 5 out of 6. I had Minnesota 2 on paper for people who wonder.
The Indians look not right. Something's wrong there. They can't hit, and their pitching is not looking great right now. But they physically can't hit. They don't have a single guy in their lineup after 12 games hitting above 200.
Wow.
That's
wild card in the National League.
Wild card in the National League. So there's 2 of them. So should I give you both?
Yep, give both.
I'll go with the Brewers and the Mets.
I have the Giants and the Mets. I think the Giants have years where they go bounce back up and down. I kind of like bringing some veterans in, Longoria and McCutchen. If they can get healthy and get Baumgartner back in the back end, I think they might make a run. Wild card in the American League.
Angels and Yankees.
Boom. I have the same thing. I see that. Interesting. And you talked about the Indians. I had a hard time leaving the Indians out, but I thought they were struggling. They're not in there. Your World Series.
My World Series, if we're going by what teams look like right now, the Red Sox and the Mets.
All right, I didn't go right now as much as I went construction, but I want to see this. Biased. I like you. So people, listeners can shut us off right away. I want to see a Wrigley Field and a Fenway Park World Series, 2 of the greatest parks ever. I've been to both. I kind of root for the Red Sox after the Cubs, and both of the teams right now are losing as we're talking right now. But I would like to see a Cubs Red Sox. I think they're good enough. If those teams don't make it, I see Houston and Yankees again in the American League fighting there. I do think the Nationals might break through to get in as well. Who might get in besides for you for that we didn't mention?
The Astros, obviously. Don't count. I mean, the Cardinals, as much as that pains me to say it, don't count them out either because they always seem to be well. And I also, I don't like the Dodgers at all this year. I don't think they're great. but them, obviously. I still don't think I just don't. And the Rockies, because let's be honest, their pitching, I mean, their offense is going to get going eventually.
Well, Bryan, I appreciate you coming on, talking a little baseball. Let's make this about a monthly tradition. We'll check back in sometime in May and see how these teams are going. And we have our predictions on record here. So when it comes October, we can look back to see if we did any. Well, let's root for some better weather across the country, less rain, less cold, so we can really see these athletes play the way they're supposed to.
It's 80 here today, so
you got a couple of days coming, and we got rain for the weekend.
Well,
and
it's supposed to snow on Saturday, so you know.
And then also maybe we could talk a little college baseball. I've been following Indiana. I have a Sports Talk with Tonsoni does an Indiana baseball review show every week, and you have sent some things about Nebraska struggling a little bit. So maybe we can get together before our next Major League Baseball and talk a little college baseball. But thank you for being on. Love what you do and love your passion for sports, and go Red Sox.
Thank you. They're getting crushed tonight, but you know, it's only one game in the grand scheme of things. So
all right, I wish you the best the rest of the week. For Sports Talk with Tonsoni, I'm your host, Bryan Tonsoni. You could listen anywhere that you can grab podcasts, and also check out our Twitter feed for this show at Sports Tons. Direct message me with anything that you would like to see, whether it's baseball or other sports. We have some playoffs in hockey and basketball that we can talk about a little bit as well. Send your questions, your thoughts. We try to go on at least once or twice a week. So, again, for Bryan Mauro, this is Bryan Tonsoni. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.